I always kind of joke, like every time I read this passage, I'm always reminded of the first time I ever played paintball. Any paintball fans out there, you ever go play as a kid, you kind of remember it. First time I ever played, I was about 11 years old, and it happened at the Christmas season when I was about 11 or 12, something like that. Our Uncle Dave was the guy, he was the uncle that always did fantastic Christmas gifts every year, and this is what he decided to give all of the cousins and able-bodied kids in our family for Christmas that year. And so he comes and he doesn't just give like t-shirts or whatever, it's an experience. And so I remember opening this up and going like, oh my gosh, we got a certificate to go play paintball. I've heard about this, sounds fantastic. I love playing Nerf. Surely it's the same thing, right? And it's gonna be absolutely fantastic. And so I get this, and y'all, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I showed up that afternoon. We showed up in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere at this paintball place. I'm pretty sure some guys just kind of posted an ad on Craigslist and was like, hey, come play paintball with us. And it was out in the middle. Y'all, I showed up wearing like soccer shorts and a t-shirt that day to go play paintball for the very first time. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And I blame my family. I don't know what happened with them, if they were just like laughing when they saw little 11-year-old Aaron kind of walk out there and they're like, haha, he's about to get lit up. This is gonna be fun. And I don't know what they're thinking. It's like, no one warned me about it or anything like that. And I'm not kidding you. I had like 3 other cousins come and a number of other brothers and sisters. And the cousins, I'm not kidding, like, they showed up and it looked like they had just bought out an entire army surplus store. You know what I'm talking, you know the people I'm talking about, the ones that go way overboard on everything. Like they had all the camo, they had armor on. I mean, they had these massive goggles. They had like paint grenades. I had no idea they make grenades. I don't know why you need grenades for that, but I mean, I do now, but back then I had no idea. And y'all, they went absolutely nuts. Suffice to say, I got killed that day, which is why I'm never gonna forget it at all. I remember the first time the games began and we were playing a capture the flag game. I remember storm the castle, and I just think about it kind of like skiing. It's my first time, I have no idea. I had no idea how bad like paintballs actually hurt. And so it was kind of like skiing, and you're like, okay, I saw it on the Olympics one day. I'm gonna tuck and I'm just gonna go as fast as I can down this mountain, right? Great idea. And that's not how you do it. And so, but I stormed the field. I had no idea what I was doing. I just ran as fast as I could into this little building. I bust down the door, and all of a sudden there's 5 dudes surrounding me, and they just go, just laid into me as a kid. And I'll never forget like how bad the whole thing hurt. Had like whelps all over the over the body. I mean, my knuckles are busted up. I mean, the hand is bleeding all over the place. I was wearing soccer shorts, running through the woods, thorns and all the things, like the legs are torn up. And I'll never forget that day because I showed up thinking we were there to play a game, and everyone else showed up ready for a war. And I think about that every time I look at this passage, because this is exactly where Paul is going as he is wrapping up this letter. He's saying, hey, do not forget that you are living in the middle of a war. Do not be naive about what's actually taking place around you every single day. Don't think for a second that this battle that you're in is just a battle against flesh and blood. In other words, it's not just a battle against your neighbor, whoever that person may be, the people on this side over here, the people on this side over here. Don't think for a second that the battle is just against flesh and blood, because there is a battle that you're in every single day. It is an ongoing spiritual battle against the rulers and the authorities and the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And so some of us hear some of this language, some of this spiritual warfare, demonic kind of language, and some of us are sitting there kind of going, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. Like, I know what this warfare is like. I've been it, I've seen it. I know the amount of darkness that is in the world around us today. I've seen, like, I turn on the news, I pay attention, like I know that Hamas is not just a bunch of dudes that need a nap. I know that there is a legitimate evil in the world, and it's not letting up. Some of us are looking at the different stats, and you're seeing the rise in anxiety and depression and the rates of suicide and all of these different kinds of things. And you're sitting there kind of going, okay, that's weird, because there's more help available today than ever before. We've got more medicine, we've got more education, we've got more counseling, we've got more people trying to solve this problem than ever before, and it keeps going up and up and up. And so some of us, we hear this language, what Paul's talking about right here, and you're sitting there going, hey, yeah, like, you don't need to convince me. I know how dark, I know the spiritual battle that is taking place in the world every single day. Some of us hear this language, and you're sitting there kind of going, okay, spiritual forces of darkness? Like, what is it, like He-Man or something, like sci-fi? What are we talking about here? In fact, David Sheff writes about this, and he says that this is how I used to think. He says, until I saw the face of evil come out of my son's meth addiction, and I watched as it nearly took his life. He writes about it in this book called The Beautiful Boy, which is all about his son's battle with meth, how it all began. He starts researching it, finds out that meth is this finely tuned drug that increases aggression while lowering compassion. He says he starts researching it, connecting it to all these horrific crimes all around the United States done to women and children, and realizing that pretty much every single time it was driven by this drug. And so here's this dad who is not a believer. He is an atheist at the time and still not a believer, follower of Christ or anything like that. But he talks about in this book how he ends up believing in the spiritual world and in supernatural things, not because he's starting with the Bible, but because the more he studied meth and how horribly dehumanizing it was, he says only the devil could create a drug like that. He says, the more I started researching some of the dark and the twisted things that are in the world, the more I realized it is not only a bad home life. It is not just a bad group of friends. It is not just the wrong education or the wrong medications or the wrong political people in office. In other words, it's not just a battle that's against flesh and blood. He says there is a lot of genuine evil in this world that science is not able to explain. And so I love the way that C.S. Lewis always talks about this. He always talks about how there's two mistakes that we often make when it comes to the demonic spiritual warfare conversations like that. But he says there's two mistakes that we typically make. He says some people see the devil in everything, basically. Like these are the people that are like, you know what, the devil made me do it about everything. Hey, you had a bad dream, and so hey, the spiritual warfare, like the devil's appearing in my mind and all these things, instead of examining, you know what, I probably shouldn't have had that burrito at 10:30 at night or something like that. And so he says this one mistake is that some people see him everywhere. Like it's always the devil. The devil made me do it, instead of, you know what, I just really, really wanted to sin that day. I really wanted to go down that path. I really wanted to do it. So he goes, some people see the devil in everything. The flip side is that some people see him in absolutely nothing. And he says to that one, Satan is fine with our disbelief. Why? Because his goal is not his own fame. His goal is our destruction. And that often works better with disbelief, is what he argues. It's why Paul is going to say that our enemy masquerades as an angel of light. In other words, he's not masquerading and running around with a pitchfork and horns and the red face paint and making himself obvious and known everywhere you look or anything like that. His goal is to trick you and to deceive you into thinking that he is actually an angel of light.